Hey, it's me, WWE Hall of Famer from the LOD, Road Warrior Animal. And who are you?
Yeah, I gotta do this when? Now? I'm watching a match. What is now? Now is, oh, now. Yeah, thanks. Hey, this is the Pharaoh from Monte and the Pharaoh. I just want to say thank you to our subscribers as we now have hit the 10,000 plateau. Thank you to all our subscribers out there. But I'm going to ask our subscribers to take the next step for us and become a full-fledged YouTube Monte and the Pharaoh member. Yes, that's right, folks. You can check it out. We've got 3 different levels. There's free shirts. There's free autographs. There's all sorts of perks for our members. There is nothing more we enjoy than giving you this program. And to do that, we need your support, and we appreciate your support. This is Jimmy Pharaoh, and don't forget to check out Monte and the Pharaoh every Thursday from Indie Music TV and on Cablevision here locally in New York. Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, Monte and the Pharaoh. Later. Is that good enough for you? Can I finish this? Lesnar's killing him. I'm pissed. Yes.
All right, welcome to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, Monte and the Pharaoh, only seen here out of Indie Music TV, out of Ronkonkoma, Long Island. By the way, my wife has been busting my balls about that.
About what?
Because I say producing in Ronkonkoma, on Ronkonkoma. She says foreigners use on, and if we live here, it's supposed to be in.
Okay.
Thoughts?
That's fine. Why don't you take a little less heat? Hi, we're here in Ronkonkoma.
That's the star of the show, Mr. Jimmy Pharaoh. Jimmy, how are you, my friend?
Good. It's morning, and I'm actually forming sentences.
Actually, I am a little bit shocked.
So am I.
Tony Atlas getting a little heat from Thursday's show. Want to weigh in?
Did he? What regarding what? His answers to the rebuttal of the situation?
Well, I guess Tony had a little too much to drink, and fans weren't happy about that, or whatever else.
Okay, that was his prerogative. I thought he kept it clean.
I thought he did too.
I thought
you thought about his viewpoints about going into business for himself?
What? That's not his right. That's his right.
That's why I'm asking you a question.
Tony woke up to the. He's got his internet connection now. He's got his computer and. He wants to do things himself, so let him.
Fair enough.
It's his call.
So,
go Tony.
Biggest thing on the docket today, besides the 2 superstars we have in studio, I was bringing my wife out to dinner yesterday, right? And I've got XM radio.
Yeah.
And I like listening to 80s on 8.
Okay.
Right?
80s on 8.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's 80s music, right?
Sure.
Stuff we grew up on.
Yeah.
Not you. You were kind of a metalhead. I get it, but
that's 80s.
I guess.
Maiden and Priest is an 80s?
But anyway, I thought I was thinking about you because Tommy Two-Tone came on.
Tommy Two-Tone. Yeah, he had a phone number, didn't he?
Yeah, 5309.
867-5309. Yeah, Jenny. Yeah, what about it?
Did you like that song?
Yes, I did. For a metalhead, yes, I did. For a guy who grew up with the Black Sabbath
me feel
and
good.
The Beatles, by the way, so don't get crazy out there. But yeah, I liked Jenny. Something wrong with it?
Did you call that number when you were younger?
I think everybody called that number.
How many times do you think you called?
Let me see. To be honest, I might have called once or twice, but I have no memory of it. It probably was just a disconnected line. Who would have that number during that time?
The only reason I brought it up, right, is I was thinking how good that song makes me feel.
It makes you feel
good. It makes
me
feel young.
What, like I ran from a flock of seagulls? That makes you feel good?
But being a musician, does it upset you that a song that simple became that famous?
No, of course not, because the Beatles had in the
By the way,
early...
Flock of Seagulls had more than one hit, though.
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah, Space Age Love Song.
More than that.
Did they really? They
I
had.
think they had like 3 or 4.
Did they? Okay. No, the Beatles started on the simplest of terms with songs like "She Loves You." There's nothing wrong with a good, simple, catchy tune.
Oh boy, now we're comparing Tommy Two
No,
Tone
we're
to
not.
the Beatles.
No, we are not. But I'm showing the comparative of simple songs are just as good sometimes as "Stairway to Heavens." It all depends.
I'd like to thank the band that sings the theme song to the Monte and the Pharaoh show, own Jimmy Pharaoh, along with his partner Bart Griggs, make the band Wisteria Hall.
Yeah.
Wisteria Hall sings such great songs as our theme song, Riding High, In My Dreams, This Life, Not Far Behind, Here Comes the Rain. You can find their music on the Wisteria Hall YouTube page, which we're asking people to give a little thumbs up, a little like, subscribe, show them some love.
You put 83750.
Whatever, right? Come on, dude.
867.
I mean, give me a break.
Oh, it's
I'm old. I'm
hilarious.
tired.
It's early.
Spotify, iTunes, and Reverb Nation. In case you didn't know it, this is the Monte and the Pharaoh Show, Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. You can see us on the Monte and the Pharaoh YouTube page, Facebook Live page. You can hear us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor. You can see us on the Twitch TV Monte and the Pharaoh page. And if you live in New York, you can catch us 3 times a week on Channel 115 every Tuesday in the
Reduced version.
Thank you.
I hate when you do that.
Well, that's another thing my wife was bitching at me about.
What?
About
She doesn't
the-
agree with the reduced terminology?
Yeah.
Thank you. I agree with that.
There you go.
All
Where you
right.
will see these 2 superstars in the reduced version from 7 to 7:30, and for early risers like 6 a.m. in the morning, which
Yeah.
I'm up at from 6 to 6:30 on Channel 115, and for the nightlife people like yourself, the
Thank you.
vampires,
Yes.
Channel 20, 1 a.m. to 1:30. So when you're home from drinking,
Or if you're home drinking and you
if
didn't go
you
out.
want to settle down, you can
you
catch a
decided to
little
stay
M&P along with these 2 icons. We'll be
Sure.
right back after this commercial break with the 3-time WWF Tag Team Champions, Money Inc. Yes, Money Inc. We are in awe right now, Mr. Ted DiBiase and Mike Rotundo.
See you in a sec.
And Nitro's Garage for all your automotive needs. Call 646-675-2349. That's 646-675-2349. For all your automotive needs, Nitro's Garage. Ask for Jack.
And APB, American Protection Bureau, voted #1 best on Long Island for all your security needs. Call 631-390-9050. That's 631-390-9050. APB. That's right, folks. Canine Corral. For all your dog daycare and overnight care, call 631-549-1544. That's 631-549-1544.
All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. Monte and the Pharaoh, only seen here out of Indie Music TV in Ronkonkoma, Long Island. In studio, we have the WWE Legends Hall of Famers, Money Inc. in studio, Mr. Ted DiBiase, and I was corrected, but I don't want to do it, IRS. So for the fans that get out there, don't get all uptight with me. I'm sorry. I like Mike Rotundo.
It's
Not Rotunda.
Rotunda.
It's both.
And then he threatened to kill me if I use Michael Wall Street, but I won't.
Oh, please. No.
Guys,
No.
I want to really, seriously, I want to thank you for coming in, taking your time. I know you got a busy day today. What an honor, a huge thrill to have,
Go ahead.
we were just
mark
talking
out.
about,
Mark out.
I'm marking out a little
Go
bit. We were
ahead.
talking about Barry Windham, what a huge fan I was of Barry.
Absolutely.
And what a huge fan I of you, Mike. And then, oh my God, it's Ted DiBiase,
By the way. Oh
the
my
guy
God.
that, drew more ratings than the Super Bowl
Yeah.
on a Friday night.
We'll get to that.
We'll
Yes.
discuss that. Did you know that, Ted? You
No,
seem a
I
little
didn't.
quizzical on
Ted's
that
like,
one.
I did?
No, really?
You did.
We're going to find out.
I know it now,
Wow.
and I'll use it.
That's right.
As you should.
And by the way, at the Wrestling Universe, who they'll be signing at now, the prices has just gone up to $80 for autograph, just so everybody's aware.
Everybody's got a price. Oy.
WrestleMania right around the corner.
Yeah.
1 week away. Hulk Hogan, Titus O'Neil will be hosting WrestleMania. Many fans angry over the fact that Hogan is even involved in this. Not us. We're huge fans.
God.
In fact, Hall of Famer Mark Henry makes it clear that Hogan still hasn't apologized for his comments from how many years ago?
We're talking 10 almost at this point.
You guys want to weigh in on the cancel culture that's going on with this country right now?
I think it's sick. It's just like, to me, it's ridiculous. It is. It's, get over it. Grow up.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much from the old school of things too, as far as I think knowing your history can make you great. You learn from history, and history repeats itself. So the idea is not to repeat the bad, but keep the good. And everybody has an opinion, I get that, but sometimes it's gotten to the point where it's just totally ridiculous. For what reason? I mean, every society in the world has been oppressed one way or the other at some time throughout history, and you overcome it and try not to let it ever happen again.
And you're exactly right, Mike. And history does repeat itself. Again, it'll repeat itself as long as if you don't learn from the mistakes that are made. Right. And I think that there needs to be some things around, that we can look at and go, you know what, I'm going to make sure that never happens again. But to just to trample everything out, you can't do this, you can't do that, get rid of that statue and all that stuff because of that. No, it's all a part of our history. And again, it's a reminder of what we shouldn't go back to.
Are we becoming too soft as a society?
Wow.
I'll start it. I'll say yes.
I feel we are.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And how can we learn from our mistakes if we're so busy erasing our past? We'll have nothing back to look upon,
Right.
to learn from.
I agree.
I'm confused by it.
Look, I'm a big animal advocate, right? Speciesism, right? Racism, speciesism, anti-Semitism, right? To me, they all fall into the same bucket. And look, I'm a huge fan of Hulk Hogan. I always thought he was he changed people's lives. That's what we're here on this planet, right? To change people's lives. And, my whole point is, how do we give someone like Hulk Hogan such a hard time? But with all due respect, Michael Vick, who tortured animals and killed hundreds and hundreds of animals, is being held up to this higher level. And you don't see this. It seems like such an imbalance that's going on here. Or is it just the fact that this country likes to knock people down so they can just build them up and knock them down again?
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the public eye, you're in that situation one way or the other, and it's almost like the point where you're going to make some people happy, but you're definitely going to offend a lot of other people. So you're kind of riding this teeter-totter and don't know which direction to go, or step over this bounds, or you hide behind this building, or step out, front and center stage. It's hard to do this day and age because everybody's got an opinion, everybody's got a cell phone, and there's no escape. So you really have to be careful what you say, where you say it, when you say it. And that's sad because, life should be at some time spontaneous, and you don't get that right to be able to do that like you would have 30 years ago or 20 years ago or 10 years ago, for that matter.
Why can't people differ in opinion and get along and discuss that opinion?
I don't know.
It doesn't have to be an angry battle. It's
Right.
like, this is what I believe in, this is what you believe in, let's discuss it like
there's
two
no
humans.
respect,
Right.
That's the
There
word.
it is. Bingo.
Right.
No respect.
The respect has gone
And
out.
Ted, it's got to be hard with you, preaching the word, to be able to keep that balance too, right? It's like, you got to be hard, right?
Well, and again, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
That's beautiful.
I love it.
And so,
beautiful.
and I am unashamedly a Christian and a believer in Jesus Christ, and that's what I preach, and of course it's sad, but in our country today, that's being attacked.
Do you think there's any connection going back to 9/11 with the downfall it seems to be towards religion in this country? Because I hate to link the two, but I feel like on 9/11 a lot of things happened to our collective soul as a nation, and I feel like we've turned our back very much so on religion without even saying it or declaring it publicly. It seems to be the unsaid thing as part of the overall attack on the traditional values of this country. Any thoughts on that? I know it's kind of deep, but I wonder about that.
Well, I don't know if I would say 9/11 was the kickoff point, but I mean, I agree with you. But biblically speaking, if you believe the Bible, the first time God destroyed the world was because mankind became totally corrupt, immoral, and the whole ball of wax, to the point where He said, "I'm gonna get rid of it and start over."
Right.
And He did promise that, and He also says that it's going to happen again. In other words, the world, not just the United States, but the world is going to get to a place of immorality and depravity again, and the next time He destroys, it's going to be by fire, not by blood. Right. So, and again, I believe the Bible, so I mean, it's what's going to happen. And I've seen a lot of things in our country that I didn't think I'd ever see.
Right.
But I think the freedom of speech, in some cases, and by some, is trying to be impeded. Like, oh, you can't think that, or you can't say that. No, well, I'm going to stand for what I believe in.
Good for you.
Amen.
Amen. Can we recover as a country? Are we running out of time?
Well, I think we can, if we will. But the clock's ticking.
Yep. Feels like it. All right, on a much lighter note, although it's not very
Did
light.
you think that, hey, we're going into this wrestling interview, and now we're talking about...
Yeah, I thought it. This is Monte and the Pharaoh. Hey, guys. Yeah, I thought it. Absolutely. And I'm glad it happened. So anyway, this is a little less controversial or a little less sensitive, but not to a wrestling mark like me. The Hall of Fame, of course, is coming up in the very near future, and it starts the debate, as always, every year about who should be in. Well, first of all, Mr. Rotunda, Mr. IRS, you should be in the flipping Hall of
Michael
Fame.
Wall Street.
He told you not to call. All right, the dinner's going to be fun for you later.
Boy,
later. But IRS should be in the Hall of Fame. Let's be serious here. It's an absolute joke, especially after they're just putting in the great Khali. Sorry, Khali. But any thoughts about possibly getting in the Hall of Fame one day?
Well, I don't really concern myself with stuff I can't control.
I do.
Well,
Get in. No, I'm sorry.
no, really. I mean, it would be nice to be, but it's not an earth-shattering thing for me. I, in my heart, know what I did while I wrestled, and I'm happy with that.
It should be.
So.
Should be, but you should be in. I mean,
I
Mike,
appreciate
we're
you
going to write a
saying
letter
that.
to the Hall, or are we going to start a campaign?
I'm pretty angry.
I know.
Gotta be honest
Put
with
it
you,
here.
guys like yourself or Barry Windham. I know Windham got in with the Horsemen,
Right.
but I mean, for Windham not to be in by himself, or for you not to be in by yourself, or for you not to be with the U.S. Express, I mean,
Right.
what you guys did
That
for that
too.
company. Again, we're huge WWE guys back in the day, huge Vince McMahon guys.
Yeah.
Again, far right, huge Donald Trump guy. So, but
Oh, boy.
not to have you in is ridiculous.
Well, I appreciate you saying so, but like I said, I don't stress over things I can't control because
Right.
there's no sense doing that. So.
I think the call will come, to be very honest. I think it will come.
Who do you think should be in, like, as icons yourselves, like, when you look back and you see what's happening with the Hall of Fame? Because I think there is importance in this Hall of Fame.
Well, we were speaking earlier. I think Demolition definitely should be in there. They were a cool tag team, and there's a lot of people. If I'd have to look at a whole list, but
The wrestling.
like even the guy that started me in the wrestling business, Dick Beyer, and Ted knew Dick Beyer, the Destroyer. He literally was in Japan, a superstar over there with his own television show. I mean,
Which is very unusual
for 7 years.
Very
For
extremely
American.
unusual in Japan for somebody that's what gaijin. Gaijin means you're a foreigner. You're not Japanese.
Right.
That was almost unheard of.
Plus, he had a outstanding career in the U.S. He just never was a WWE guy, so to speak. But he worked for Vern Gagne and the territories out in San Francisco, and he was a well-known character, you know, and literally everybody laughs because he would wear his mask when he went back to Japan. Well, that was his whole thing. They had like the biggest TV rating in Japanese history, I think, and that still applies today, when Dick Beyer wrestled Giant Baba for the title.
There you go.
That's pretty big.
There you go.
I can't remember you'd have to look that up, what the TV rating was, but I think it still stands as the biggest rating they've ever had there.
Wow.
So, and
Ted, you enjoyed Japan with another foreigner who was treated like a wrestling god over there too, Stan Hansen, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, Stan,
What was that like?
It was great. I mean, I can still remember when Stan Hansen and Bruiser Brody were a tag team, and extreme again, another one of those teams that everybody watched that were huge. And when Brody jumped and went to New Japan, which was unheard of because loyalty is a very big thing in Japan, and the fact that he would jump from one company to another was just almost unheard of, and it was huge news. And then Stan comes to me and he goes, Brody's jumped to the other side. I need a new partner. Do you want the job?
Man.
I mean, my mouth dropped open. I said, are you kidding? He said, no. I said, absolutely. And so, and of course, it was short-lived because of the WWF. When I saw, when I picked up my newspaper and saw that Vince had put 93,000 people in the Pontiac Silverdome, I said it then. I said, I'm either going to have to be a part of that company or, because everything else is going to go away.
Well, that's funny. So you saw what was happening.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you were part of that whole beginning of this. How come you and Barry left?
young and dumb.
Good answer.
Okay.
Just,
Okay.
Young and dumb, man. We just said one day, and I didn't grow up in this business. I was only like 3.5 years into my career at that point. I had no idea what would happen, but we were just. And to be honest with you, I mean, that first year Barry and I were up here with WWF, we wrestled, I think, over 300 days. And we were you're at that point, the cracking point. And we used to call guys going AWOL, because you never went home. Oh, such is AWOL. Oh, he'll be back in a couple weeks. I mean, it was like that because it was so hot. Everything was selling out, and you would go to TV every 3 weeks and get a stack of tickets like that with rubber band around in your booking sheet on there, what towns you were going to. Every morning you were up at 6 a.m. taking 2 flights on whatever airline was going there. Get to the town, boom, same thing the next day. Yeah, I mean, it was nonstop, and it was tough, And I was young. Can't even mention like a guy that was, like in his mid-40s trying to keep up with that pace. And we just cracked one night and said, left. And I came back and finished my bookings. But it also worked out for me because what happened out of the situation, I went back to work for like NWA. And that was the first time I had ever started being a heel in the varsity club, which I thought worked really good. And then at least I had some experience leading up to when I ended up going back to WWF at the time to become IRS, and then team up with Ted and then go from there. But I had some experience. It would have been hard to switch over to heel if I'd have stayed in WWF.
Makes sense. But was that like a culture shock to you a little bit? Because it's funny you bring up the varsity club, because when I was in the military, we were talking about I was in Louisiana. Sometimes on a weekend, the NWA used to come through Monroe, Louisiana, right? So we walked up. Now, I grew up in the Northeast, big WWE guy. You couldn't pick up a ticket here, man. I used to go to the Garden all the time, but once it really got hot, it was very hard to get tickets. We walked up, got front row seats for like $10, and the place was literally empty. And you were there, actually. It was like, maybe there's 100 people there. Was that like a culture shock going from the WWF to that type of environment?
Well, I remember, I think what happened was you probably went to a show when Turner took it over.
Yes.
And what the deal was with that, they didn't advertise anything. They didn't care if the live events made a dime, because they paid Crockett so much and really stole the company from them for what they paid for them. Because that company back in the day, and you're talking the late 70s, early 80s, was making probably 20 million a year. Well, they paid the kids, each one of them, so much, didn't care about, because they're a TV business, so they didn't advertise the shows.
Right.
That's why they didn't draw.
Yeah, because it was stacked. Sting, Pays, all you guys
Right,
were on
they
there.
didn't care.
It was crazy.
It was a write-off for them.
Wow.
So your timing was very strange, that show you caught there.
That was freaking good.
Wow.
For me, it was fun.
As far as a culture shock, no, because you go somewhere and you deal with it. You deal with the consequences, and like WWE starting out was like, it was so hot because they took guys out of every territory and put them all together on TV, on a big TV, and they reached a lot of people, and of course they're going to draw. So it was new and exciting. So
I was at a show in we were having a show in Houston, and this is when I was in Mid-South. Mid-South was a huge territory.
Yeah.
I mean, all of Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. And then Bill Watts bought Houston, from Paul Bosch. And so, I mean, it was a big territory, and it was always a good territory. Bill Watts, in my opinion, was one of the smartest guys in terms of his understanding of the psychology of what we do. And he learned a lot of what he knew from a guy named Eddie Graham. And Eddie Graham learned most of what he knew from a guy named Dory Funk Sr. And but I was having a conversation with Bruce Pritchard, who lived in Houston, and Bruce said, I'm about to go to New York, and talk to him about a job. And I was in the dressing room in Atlanta when Pat Patterson showed up, and that takeover happened. And Pat was assuring everybody, hey, everybody's got a job, nobody's, going to get fired, calm down.
Now, what is this, Black Monday? What they call it, Black Monday?
Yeah.
Thank you, okay.
And so I got Pat off to the side, and I said, Pat, there's a difference between having a job and having a position. And I said, all the positions are taken right now, so I'm gonna leave here, and I'm going back to work for Bill in Mid-South. When you got a position, let me know.
Wow.
So when Bruce went to New York, I just said, drop my name, let me know. But at the time, though, I had that great position. I had gotten that thing with Stan Hansen. And so, I had Japan there. It was like, a lot of guys were panicking, like, what's going to happen? And so I go to Japan, and I get a message, call me as soon as you can. So I called Bruce, and he said, okay, 2 things have happened since you left. Number one, Bill Watts has just sold his territory to Jimmy Crockett. As soon as I heard that, I know Bill. Bill's a smart guy. He saw what was coming. He saw, look, I'm not going to be able to compete with this. And so he sold out. And so I told Bruce, and he said, the other thing is, Vince McMahon is very interested in you. And he says, when you get back, do not sign a contract with Crockett before you have a chance to talk to Vince McMahon. And, the rest is history.
So you mentioned Pat Patterson. Last December, we lost Pat Patterson. Can you guys share your thoughts on that?
Oh, gosh. Pat Patterson, another guy, in my opinion, who had a world knowledge and about the psychology of wrestling. And quite frankly, if I ever had a question about something I was asked to do, or if I ever needed, like if I got into a position where I needed some help, if he was available, he's always the first guy I'd go to. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think he had something to do with the development of my character, which was basically Vince's idea. But Bruce told me that this was funny. Vince and him took a flight somewhere, and he said, Bruce, he said, I'm gonna prove a point to you. Everybody's got a price. So they're sitting in first class, and this was before you could still smoke on a plane, and Vince hates smoke. So this guy, either in front of him or behind him or next to him, this lights up a cigarette, and he says, man, I can you please put your cigarette out? He says, I'm sorry. He says, but I paid for my seat, da 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 da. And so he goes, man, I'll give you a couple $100, He says, I'm sorry. He says, I said, look, I'll give you $500. And he says, I'm sorry. He says, I'll give you $1,000. He puts a cigarette out and he takes the money. and he looked at Bruce. He said, see, everybody's got a price. And so anyway, that's. But I'm sure that Pat had something to do with the development.
Can you clear up one thing for me personally? So you're in the WWF or WWF at the time, and you're the North American champion, and they come up with this idea. I think Vince Sr. comes up with the idea of the Intercontinental title, and then you're supposed to have this match in what?
Rio de Janeiro,
okay, with Patterson for the Intercontinental.
Okay, what happened is the first time I went to New York, until then, my understanding was they had a world champion, world tag team champions, female world champion, and female tag team champions, and that was the only titles that they had. And so when they brought me in as the North American heavyweight champion. First time they introduced a new title to the territory. And so I don't know, a little while went on, and I just happened to mention to Vince Sr., I said, Bill Watts has a North American champion in Mid-South. And he said, I didn't know that. So that's what, it was kind of like a respect thing. And so they made up a story, is what they did, is that, like Pat beats me, for the North American title, and then goes off to this tournament in Rio de Janeiro where all of these champions put their titles up, and whoever comes out of that tournament, the winner, is the Intercontinental champion.
So there is no match, there is no tape on it, you can't find it.
No.
Because there's people claiming there's tape on it, I have it.
No, it never happened. It was a story.
Wait a minute, Pat was supposed to be Southern heavyweight champion. When did that happen? That's the other mystery to this whole thing. Mike, how about your memories of Pat?
Yeah, Pat was a great psychologist and had a lot of experience, and had seen a lot in the business and helped a lot of guys. I remember Pat mostly when Barry and I first started. Back in 1984, Pat was a producer / agent on the road, and I worked with him one time at a bar mitzvah. They booked us at this bar mitzvah somewhere in New York.
Patterson at a bar mitzvah.
Yeah,
right.
and that's what the kid wanted. That's what the kid wanted for his bar mitzvah.
Pat Patterson.
So we had three matches on the card, and I worked with Pat. And then we jumped in the car and drove to Washington, D.C. for our night show that weekend. It was crazy. So, but yeah, and I remember I had just gotten married, and I got my wife on the road, which was basically the only time we ever got to see each other. I brought her on the road because I was never home. And Barry had a girlfriend on the road, and so we come back. We made it through this snowstorm, and Barry and I are on last with Sheik and Volkov, and we come back, and our wife, or my wife and Barry's girlfriend, are in the back drinking pina coladas with Pat. And I'm like,
that's great.
But that's, and he was just happy. He was, I'm so happy you make it here.
He's a good host.
Wait a minute, that's a pretty good imitation of Pat. That is much better than you.
You're the one who imitates Pat. I've never even tried to.
I'm not even close to that. Can I hear another one?
You left the pressure on me. No.
We'll get a promo afterwards. He'll do Patterson.
I always want to know about your lives growing up and your parents. Can you both share about your parents and life growing up before wrestling?
Well, for me, there was no life before wrestling because my dad was not only a professional wrestler, he had been a national amateur champion. In 1946, while he was still in the Navy,
right.
he won the AAU National Heavyweight Wrestling title.
Right.
And then post Navy, he went to Nebraska and lettered 8 times, 4 years in football, 4 in wrestling. 3 years in a row, he was conference heavyweight champion for the University of Nebraska. And Mike came into my life when I was 5. He wasn't my biological dad. He married my mother when I was 5, and my mother's given name was Gladys Nevins, but her wrestling name was Helen Hild. My mother was also a professional lady wrestler,
Right.
and a pretty dang good one.
Right.
And that's how they met, and they got married when I was in October of '59, when I was 5 years old. He came into my life, and the rest is history. I mean, I was like, the territorial days of wrestling, and he was a top performer everywhere he went. And again, had a tremendous relationship with Dory Funk Sr. I remember going to the first grade in Amarillo. I came back there, and I was in the 6th grade in Amarillo, and we came back again after my freshman year of high school. Left Nebraska, and was going to finish high school in Texas, and my father died that summer. Working for Dory, and I went back and finished high school in Arizona, and then I had signed a scholarship to play ball at Arizona, University of Arizona. Wrestling comes on TV one day. I hadn't seen any wrestling for 3 years since my father's death, and it's the tape from Amarillo. So they're coming into Arizona to run some shows. So I go to Tucson and visit the Funks, and Terry says, "Hey," he says, "I can get you a recruiting trip to visit West Texas." He says, "Even if you've decided what to do," he says, "just come back and see everybody." And I said, that'll be great. And so I went. That's all it took. I got back around it. I got back in that atmosphere just for those couple of days. But I was smart enough to know that coming out of a very small school in southern Arizona, that West Texas State is probably a better choice for me than Arizona. But in the back of my mind was always wrestling. It's like I'm going to get back around this, and it was always in my head. And so, biggest mistake in my life, I go 3 years college, play football for 3 years, get out of school. And at the end of my sophomore year, during the summer, I refereed in the territory. And I couldn't wrestle, but I could be a referee. You can learn a whole lot about the business being the third man in the ring. And then at the end of the next summer, at the end of my junior year, Dick Murdoch says to me, he says, "I'm going down to Mid-South to wrestle for Bill Watts." He said, "If you want to get your feet wet, I think I can get you booked." And so Bill went ahead and let me come in there, and I was going to wrestle for the summer and go back and finish school, and I never went back. Things went very well, very fast, and I still biggest mistake of my life. I mean, I was 1 year away from a degree in education, and
It's not too late, Ted.
you're right.
Just got 1 year.
I could still do it.
One more year.
That's too funny.
I could still do it.
I don't know if that's a mistake, though, man. I mean,
well,
considering what happened.
It worked out.
Oh,
pretty
rats!
good.
I turned out to be the $1 million man. Darn it! Mike, how about you growing up before wrestling?
I grew up in upstate New York, basically on 180 acres of land.
Nice.
We had
Nice.
beef, cattle. My dad worked construction. My mom worked at IBM for like 50 years.
Wow. Okay.
I have one sister, which she still lives up that way near my mom. Basically, my dad was a good athlete and taught me pretty much everything I knew about sports, whether it was football. He played basketball and was a real good baseball player, so I did all those sports, but he got me geared towards wrestling because I I was a big husky kid and thought I would do better at that than basketball. And then basically I kept, working and ended up Tom Coughlin, the coach of the Giants,
Sure.
was my recruiter to go to Syracuse University.
Wow. Nice.
And used to show up in the summer. Some summers I'd stay home and some I'd stay in Syracuse, but I had a weight room there, and I'd work a job at a cable factory and then come back and I'm working out, and Coughlin would show up and say, okay, you're going down to the track with me. And I'm like, okay. After 10 hours of working and whatever, we go to the track and he has me running 220s and 440s and 40s and whatever, so.
Is he the drill sergeant he appears to be? And I mean that in a good way. He's a legend here in New York.
He's a fair guy, though.
Fair.
Awesome. He's a fair guy. I remember a guidance counselor of mine sent him a letter because I transferred to a little bigger high school my senior year because to get a better look at getting a scholarship. So I remember we wrestled Ithaca, New York, Ithaca High School. I went to high school in Owego, New York my senior year, which was a little bigger than the high school I came from, but not really that big. So it came down to, which it does a lot in wrestling, the heavyweight match. If this team heavyweight wins, this team wins, or that the other way, So I came down to one of those deals, and we used to get a good following. Our gymnasium was full there. We had a good wrestling team. So I pinned the kid pretty quick, and I'm coming off the mat, and Coughlin comes up to me like a kid in a candy shop. He was happier than I was.
There you go.
But he liked that, and that's the kind of person he was. So
he's a great leader.
So
obviously.
anyways, I ended up going to Syracuse and on a football scholarship and wasn't going to wrestle. And I told Ted this story the other day when we were in the car yesterday. One of the guys that recruited me to try at the state tournament to go to Syracuse wrestlers, John Janiak, kept coming. I'd see him on the campus because he knew me from the state tournament. He says, come work out. Come work out with our heavyweight. Just roll around with him. You need somebody to work out with. So I finally went down to a wrestling practice, and I went there 2 or 3 days, and I told Janiak, I said, I think I can beat this guy. And he was a fifth-year senior football player, and I was a freshman, so he goes, challenge him to a wrestle-off, and I pinned him, and he quit. So because he was done. Well, he quit because he was done. He finished football and he could relax the rest of his college days and not worry about it. So they go, you want to go to Florida? And we go down there on Christmas break and wrestle. And I said, hell yeah, let's go. So that's how I ended up. And after that, I got so close with the guys and on the wrestling team, I ended up doing both sports until my last year. I finished football and I sat out in wrestling, and 5 of us did that, and we came back the next year for a 5th year, and we won the Eastern Championships, and the only team we lost to that year nationally was Iowa. We beat Oklahoma State or whatever, and we beat Lehigh.
Wow.
We had a really good team. So
And I really admire that because it's like Mike and I agreed on this. I mean, in today's, once it's very unusual to see an athlete who's doing 2 sports.
Yeah.
You're gonna, because you're gonna pick a sport, and you're gonna be on scholarship to play football, or you're gonna be on scholarship to wrestle.
Right.
And because the wrestling coach is gonna go, hey, you ain't gonna play football. I don't want to, I want to see you get hurt, so you can't wrestle for me, and vice versa.
Right.
So you just don't see that very much.
plus you have to be a glutton for punishment
Right.
because you never get a break.
Right.
It was year round.
But it's funny. You could see that your careers were heading towards something that was going to be super positive. I mean, just.
But I didn't know anything about wrestling.
I'm just saying in general, right? You guys are world-class athletes, and I mean that, right? Football, college football players, college wrestlers.
He's pinning seniors.
Yeah,
as a
it's
freshman,
like, that's a big
and then they're
deal.
quitting.
But
There's a clue.
But the thing of it is I had no conception about ever getting in this business because where I grew up in outside of Binghamton is where Owego is. Like WWF at the time it was WWF, right?
Yeah.
So that would come on at like 12:30, 1 o'clock.
Sure.
WOR, midnight.
Sure.
In the Friday night or whatever.
Yeah, late
I
night.
didn't even know it existed. I swear to God.
So that's a good
And
point.
never had been to a pro match live until I was 23 years old and went with Dick Beyer. So it was like this. But I could tell the first time I ever went, Dick took me to Canada with him because he was working Montreal territory up there and Andre the Giant, Frank Valois, Gino Brito, and Dino Bravo owned the Montreal territory, and it was like a summer territory. And Dick was going up there. We'd go up there a week, and that's where I first met Andre. Killer Khan.
Killer Khan.
Killer Khan. I
Swede
love
Hansen
Killer
put
Khan.
me out with a sleeper in a bar because I was asking Dick. I said, "Does that really work?" And so
Nighty night, Bunny
Swede
Rabbit.
goes, "Come over here."
Right.
Next thing you know, they're whacking me in the back, and I'm like,
Mike and I have talked about this too. Some. I didn't realize when I first started, the incredible amount of talent that I was being exposed to when I first started. You named a lot of guys there that could really go.
Right.
And when you get in a ring with those guys, you got a lot better chance of picking it up than than being with somebody that knows less.
You had the fast track to learning.
Yeah. And so when I went to work for Vince was, Dick Murdoch, Killer Carl Cox. Oh my gosh, so many different guys came through there that were just they weren't good wrestlers. They were great wrestlers.
Right.
And I didn't know what I was at the time, but now I appreciate it. Like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that completely because I went to Germany to start. Then I was going back and forth, and I did maybe 2 shows, a couple shows a week, driving up to Canada. And I worked, I think Dick got me booked at a show in Toronto Maple Leafs Gardens. So I worked a show. 3 weeks later, I got a call from Johnny Weaver and said, "Hey, kid," because I worked with Jesse Ventura, and he beat me in like a minute at the Cadillac tournament.
Wow.
And Jesse says to me before, "This is Governor. Listen, kid, take it easy," because he knew I was the amateur. He goes, "Don't stretch me." And I'm like, okay. So he beat me in like a minute and a half, whatever. So Weaver calls me. So I called Dick and said, "What do I do?" He goes, "Go to Charlotte." And when I got to Charlotte, Wahoo had just taken over the book. Slaughter was there, Kernodle, Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat, Jay Youngblood, Don Morocco, Cowboy Bob Orton Jr., Greg Valentine, Ric Flair,
Listen to this list.
Oh my God.
Whose list?
Jake Roberts, who I lived with for 4 months, and that was quite an experience.
Oh, wow.
I got to hear about that one.
Wow, and you survived.
You never told me that.
I can't
Nicely done.
probably tell any of those on here.
Time out.
With that, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with 2 of the greatest pro wrestlers of all time, Money Inc.
See you in a sec.
You need a body shop? You need engine repair? Auto Excellence, Collision Specialists, 631-261-6420. That's 631-261-6420. Auto Excellence.
The Monte and the Pharaoh Show is brought to you by...
Because wine is your second favorite 4-letter word. California wine, New York attitude. Good fucking wine.
M&J Video Games and Collectibles, sport and non-sport cards, wrestling items, autographed items. We buy, sell, and trade. M&J Video Games and Collectibles, located at 1049 Queen Street, Southington, Connecticut. Call us at 1-860-479-9223 or 860-93-GAMES. M&J Video Games and Collectibles.
All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. Monte the Pharaoh, only seen here out of Indie Music TV.
Yeah.
On the couch, the icons, Ted Debiase and Mike Rotundo.
IRS.
Okay.
Get it straight. However, this is a question directed at Mike Rotunda. Back in the day, your team with Barry Windham. And the more I think about this, I'm going to continue to rail on about this. Not only could you possibly be in the Hall of Fame one day for IRS, you could be in the Hall of Fame for your time with Barry. You could be in your Hall of Fame also for your time with Money Inc. So that's 3 different complaints I'm going to be filing, Vince. Just look out for the envelope with the pyramid in the corner from the Pharaoh.
That'll go right to the trash.
Oh, you know it well. This will be like, it's him again. But thoughts on those days with you and Barry? Because that team was flipping amazing. What are your memories of those days with Barry?
If I could just add in one thing before you answer that.
Yeah.
Real American was your theme song.
Oh, my God.
Until they stole it and gave it to Hogan. So
Right.
you're getting
Thanks
money
a lot,
from that
Terry.
too?
Well, that's because we left.
That Hogan, man. Unbelievable. Always
What
thinking
you gonna do, brother? Oh, my God.
That's pretty good.
Thank you.
Those days with Barry was fast paced, brother.
Yeah.
Just boom.
Yeah.
We were on the move, and we had a lot of fun. Dusty put Barry and I together in Florida when
Dusty.
I first went down there after I was in the NWA in the Carolinas. Dusty called Crockett's and said, I need a young baby face to go down there. So I moved down to Florida. A week later, they teamed me and Barry up, and it just clicked, And we were
Right away.
We were both young and partying and out all night, just.
Were you guys like rock stars back then? I mean,
I
look at Barry, for God's sake.
To be honest with you, I can remember getting out of the car, and we were in bum, Pennsylvania, up on some mountain.
I've been there.
And people just went, oh my God.
Converged.
It's crazy because the TV was so strong. It was like on ABC or NBC, CBS. Everybody got it.
Yeah.
So when you got out of the car, I mean, just people, it was freaky.
The girls
it really
screaming
was.
like the Beatles.
Yeah, it was
I
crazy.
believe
it
it.
really was. And
I
Barry,
believe it.
yeah, girls loved Barry.
So
can imagine.
we didn't have a lot of like Florida from up here, right? So because the way TV worked, so we used to read in PWI. So when you formed that team with Barry, it was hot, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
When you guys decided to leave, was Dusty pissed off? Because you guys get really hot at that point, and then you got brought right into New York.
Yeah, but what happened was we all left Florida and moved to the Carolinas. Now, we didn't make any money, and we were making no money. So we get a call because Barry's dad had an affiliation with George Scott through Carolina. George Scott was the booker in WWF starting, but this is like 84, 85. So we get a call and said, they want you to come up there. I mean, we literally went from making $250 a week, $500 a week, to $5,000 a week.
Hello.
And this is like.
So when you called your wife and said, I'm burnt
Well,
out
I
after
wasn't
you...
married yet.
Oh, okay, I was going to say.
I met Barry's sister, Stephanie, came to visit Barry in Florida. She was just started working as a flight attendant for Delta, and she was living in Dallas. She never went back. 6 months later, we were married, which will be 36 years in October.
Speaking of that, congratulations, by the way.
Yeah.
How'd you feel about that? Like, how did Barry feel, or how did Blackjack Mulligan feel about...
Well, Barry was happy. His sister was marrying his best friend.
Okay. That's cool.
Blackjack, I called him up and said, hey, I want to take your daughter out. Well, I called him so he couldn't punch me You know?
Yeah, that's a
I
good
think
idea.
that's pretty smart.
Get
Long
with it.
distance at first.
Yeah,
That's smart.
but he appreciated that I didn't try to sneak around and
Right.
do it behind his back.
Cool.
So, and then when I called to tell him, I said, she called and said, Daddy, we're getting married, and he goes, put Mike on the phone.
Oh boy.
And he goes, are you sure?
That's funny.
Okay.
He goes, you better put a payphone in. So,
That's awesome.
the rest is history.
Yeah. It sounds like it was smooth.
3
That's
kids
cool.
later. So.
Yeah. There you go.
So Ted, I was discussing with the Pharaoh before you guys were coming in earlier on the week, right? Look, we were talking about who's the greatest heel of all time in wrestling. We're kind of going back and forth with it.
Real Mark conversation.
But clearly, you're one of the greatest heels of all time, especially up here. But then the second half of your life, you've taken on the word of Jesus Christ. Which one's been more rewarding to you?
Wow.
Oh,
Boy, oh boy.
being in the ministry for sure.
There you go.
And again, Mike has said it. Wrestling's a hard life, and I've told my story. I mean, that's what I do when I go to churches. As I tell that story, and I was making more money and flying around in Learjets and limousines and all that stuff, and you can let that go to your head. Wine, women, and song. And when my wife discovered that, I thought it was the end. I thought I have just blown the greatest thing in my life, and it also woke me up to just how selfish I was. I mean, my wife's at home raising our 2 boys, and then I had a son from my previous marriage who also came to stay with us when he was 11. She's also raising him. And when I stopped to consider just, what I had put at risk, it just, and I had a strong faith in God when I was very young, and I gradually went away from it. So it was a wake-up call for me. And by the grace of God, my wife gave me a second chance that I'll tell you right now, I didn't deserve it. And but when she gave me that chance, I said, I'm going to take this ball and run with it. And I left the WWF sooner than Vince wanted me to, and and I tried to explain to him. I said, I'm not leaving because I'm unsatisfied. I'm satisfied in every way. I said, I'm leaving because I feel like I have to separate myself from the atmosphere that I'm in. It's kind of like if you want to quit drinking, get out of the bar. And so I needed to, so what I did is I went back to work in Japan. That's when the thing with Hansen started, because to me going to Japan was safe. There's a language barrier there. It's it's not you're not you get on the bus, you go to the show, you do the show, you go you go to the next town. It was kind of like it was a safe place. So it gave me time to grow, but I never it's like that was in '92. I mean, the crap hit the fan, right? I mean, the day after WrestleMania 8.
Okay.
And in '92, and so it wasn't until '94 that I actually started taking, churches calling me and asking me to come share my story. That turned into a snowball rolling downhill. The more I went, the more I began to. I got asked, and and again, my wife giving me that second chance. I took that ball and I ran with it. And I spend a lot of time today, and a lot of the time, and instead of not just church congregations, but I do a lot of meetings specific to men, to the issues men face in life. I tell guys all the time, I said, all you macho guys, how's this sound? Servant husband. I learned to serve my family. Anyway, I could go on. I'll start preaching a sermon here.
No, it's all right.
I hear you 100%.
But,
though, I do.
Do you think your wife is glad that she made the decision to give you that second chance?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's beautiful.
We're happier today than we've ever been, and we're going on. Gosh, we're going on 39 years. Next anniversary. We're about 1 year away from our 40th.
Wow. Cool.
So,
As your ministry was growing, being, in my opinion, and Mike's too, basically the greatest heel of all time, were you met with any resistance from followers who would come and go, wait a minute, isn't this
Good question.
Ted DiBiase? I mean, how can I possibly... Now, faith could be a very turbulent thing for people in general. Did you ever get any resistance?
Well,
like, who do you think you are or anything?
Just to add on
I'm
that,
just
right?
curious if you
people
ever...
get blurred between reality and storytelling.
That's
they
true,
like,
too.
oh, look at it. I can't follow this guy. He's all about money, right? You know?
yeah. Well, nah, I don't think. I think Vince did a pretty good job of telling everybody that we were sports entertainment.
So you're glad that the kayfabe got dropped.
Yeah, but
That's interesting.
but no, I don't think I ever ran into that.
That's good.
People still hate me because they hate the IRS, though.
Yeah. You come every year and just, forget about it.
Ted, I want to get a quick question in from a fan. He just wants to know, Ted, who's more interesting to work with? Virgil, who's been in studio, and the great Sherry Martel.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
Sherry
Hands
Martel.
down.
Sherry's the
Sherry.
best.
Sherry, was like, Sherry was all go. I mean, it was like, I would rather have somebody like Sherry and go, okay, I want you to pull back a little bit. It's like, don't do too much.
What a
Like it's
fireball.
more important to do what we do at the right time as to overdo it. And so that's a lot better than the opposite. And Virgil, you know what? Virgil wasn't. Virgil was a nice guy. He never got in trouble. He didn't do drugs. He didn't. I never had any trouble with Virgil. It's just Virgil was there because he had that look.
Yeah.
And he did his job very well too. But hands down, Sherry was more fun.
She was definitely a character.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Hey, Mike, the Young Rock right now is the hottest show on network television. We had Brett Azar in studio who plays the Iron Sheik. Can you share any stories about Sheiky Baby at all?
Okay. Yes, this is where I was working as IRS. This is after, obviously, I fought against Sheik many times. So we're in Boston, in the old garden, garden, whatever they called it.
Right.
So she comes up to me, and he rode there with somebody and found out I was going back to the Hartford airport, and he said, Mike Bubba, can I catch a ride with you airport to Hartford? And I said, okay, Sheik. And I think he was on later than me. I forgot who I was working with. So he goes, no, I just put towel and we go, because I told him we need to get out of here before the people break. And back then they used to let you park inside, so you had to pull down this ramp, which we do. It's a Sunday. Pull down the ramp, go around the corner, and as we're pulling down, he goes, Mike Bubba, across the street, I know this guy, we can get some beer. And I'm like, oh God, he's got his outfit on, his shoes, his pants, no shirt, a towel. Pull up on the street, there's a big picture window, and they don't even sell beer in Boston on Sunday. So Sheik's banging on the door, and the guy's looking at him, the door's locked. I see him pantomiming this whole thing. The guy comes over, Sheik kind of steps his way in. Now he's talking to the guy, and I'm going, oh my God, these people are going to get out of here for sure. The guy goes downstairs, gets a bag, comes back up with a paper bag. Sheik comes out, or Sheik's in there. By now, here's the people coming up on the sidewalk, because it's right across the street from the building. Banging, hey, that's the effing Sheik in there. Boom, boom, boom. Now there's about 100 people outside the window.
Oh no.
And I'm sitting in the car on the curb like this going, oh my gosh. So she comes out, and he's going through the people, and people get crazy. He gets in the car, and now they're banging on the car, trying to shake the car. I back up a little. I went up on the sidewalk and blowing the horn, and some cops going, "Get out!" And I cut back down and shoot off, and the highway entrance was right up near there. And both of our hearts, my heart was racing like crazy, and she's going, "Oh, Mike, Baba, my heart. Oh, geez." So we get up on the road.
Good,
we get up on the road, and he goes, "Oh, Jesus, oh man." Oh, Mike, but beer tastes good.
That's great.
I swear to God.
I thought there was something else in that bag, but that's a whole other story.
We'll be right back after this commercial break with these all-time greats, Money Inc. in studio.
man.
Budweiser, number one. Oh, what's up, Mike?
Hey, Jimmy, what's going on?
Yeah, nothing much.
You know, Jimmy, I love this country.
Oh.
I love to buy made-in-America material. And I love to buy my artwork at TAG, T-A-A-G, Made in America, 14 East Broadway, Port Jefferson, New York, 11717. The shop at the corner.
M&J Video Games and Collectibles. Sport and non-sport cards, wrestling items, autographed items. We buy, sell, and trade. M&J Video Games and Collectibles, located at 1049 Queen Street, Southington, Connecticut. Call us at 1-860-479-9223 or 860-93-GAMES. M&J Video Games and Collectibles.
Jimmy, I gotta take a dump. What? No, I mean I need a dumpster.
Well, for all those needs, you need to call Big V Dumpster Rental, Long Island, New York, 631-900-DUMP. Jeff Quest, graphics design, custom vinyl lettering, and all your art and video needs. 516-317-8204. That's for Jeff Quest, graphic design.
In the mood for a freshly roasted cup of coffee? www.offtherailscoffeeroasters.com. You want to star in your own success? Call QuickCast. www.quickcast.com. 866-7-CAST-NOW. That's 866-7-CAST-NOW. QuickCast.
Star in your own success.
Jimmy, I just got the best hookup on tickets.
Fill me in.
I went to www.seatslinks.com and ordered the best tickets with the best prices.
Call 718-676-0504. SeatsLink, the complete ticket experience.
Tell them Charles sent you.
Elm Logistics, for all your logistic needs. Call 631-299-3595. That's 631-299-3595. Elm Global Logistics. Pride, performance, and partnerships.
You need a body shop? You need engine repair? Auto Excellence. Collision Specialists. 631-261-6420. That's 631-261-6420. Auto Excellence.
The Monte and the Pharaoh Show is brought to you by...
Because wine is your second favorite four-letter word. California wine, New York attitude. Good fucking wine.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. Monte the Pharaoh, seen only here out of Indie Music TV on a special Saturday edition with these icons, Money Inc. I got to tell you guys, it's funny, because before my heart attack, I thought I was a big guy, right? But it's like standing next to these two guys, they're like friggin' trees. It's like, now you know what real wrestlers look like. What a difference in what's going on.
Splendid Splinter, what he thinks? I mean, look at the size of these
Holy
guys.
cow,
Oh, my Lord.
How tall are you, Ted?
Well, I tell you what, I was
Was?
6'4".
You
Yeah.
were 6'4"?
Yeah. Well, I'm 67 years old now, and I think that's part of it. They say you start shrinking a little bit as you get older.
Is
But
that
I had
true?
both my knees replaced.
Oh.
I had double bilateral knee replaced. I had both done at the same time,
Okay.
and I think that's taken 2 inches away.
They gave you
Like I'm
smaller
6'2"
kneecaps?
now.
I mean,
Mike, how tall are you?
Like 6'2.5" or 6'3", somewhere around there.
I don't know, man. You guys are huge.
Big. Alrighty, let's go here. Ted, you have been in countless huge matches. However, and this seems to be news to you, so we might as well fill you in, none bigger than the main event 1988, February 5th of 1988, from Market Square Arena in Indianapolis, Indiana. This was a live broadcast that drew a 15.2 rating, equating to 33 million viewers. Any recollections of that infamous particular night?
Absolutely. That was basically the setup for WrestleMania 4. And it was the first time that professional wrestling had been on national network television since the 50s, is what by my understanding. And of course, the main event was Andre the Giant versus Hulk Hogan. And I don't believe that they had no other matches since WrestleMania 3.
Right.
They hadn't been in the ring together.
Right.
And of course, that was the main event. But the story was that I had purchased Andre's assistance, and that he was going to beat Hogan and sell me the title. And so, I didn't know until that night that Dave Hebner had a twin brother. I mean,
neither did I.
mean,
Serious?
they kept the whole thing a secret till we got to the building.
Wow.
That is, you didn't even know. That is unbelievable.
not till that night.
That is unbelievable.
Wait, so hold on. So the other guy did not work as a referee. The other Hebner never worked as a referee before.
Well, he may have, but he had never.
I honestly, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Vince had him in his basement. 1, 2, 3, count faster. You're not doing it right. Okay. This is going to be great. Wait till they see this guy. That's amazing to me that you didn't even know yourself.
And then for 2 weeks, after that, I went everywhere, showed up, got in the ring with the belt, and then
You defended that title, didn't you? One time there was 3 shows. You brought
Bam
the
Bam
belt with
Bigelow.
you.
Yes.
I believe it was yeah.
Dude, they can't take that off the record. That bothers me now. He was champion. He defended.
Wait a minute, I want to understand
I
something.
got a problem.
Coronavirus, Sleepy Joe in office, and we're going to worry that Ted DiBiase doesn't get the props for being the WWE
If your priorities are not in line, you can't be spiritually sound. I want that fixed. That's all there is to it.
Terrific. So
Please,
now we
God,
got to
fix
get
that. Thank you.
We got to get IRS in the Hall of Fame, and now Ted DiBiase has to get recognition for being
For
a
that
WWF
title reign,
champion.
absolutely. He had to make his own belt. It's an outrage.
Guys, in March we lost Jim Crockett Jr. Now we seem to be losing a lot of people.
Man.
You guys have worked the gamut. You've worked with some of the greatest promoters. You obviously Bill Watts is high on our radar too, but
Yeah.
I'll call them the big ones. All right, you've worked for Vern, Gagne, Crockett, McMahon Jr., and we'll call McMahon Sr. number 4.
Oh man.
Can you guys share your thoughts on the differences between those super promoters?
Oh man, I never worked for Jimmy. I never worked Charlotte.
Okay.
But the other guy that I would put on that list is Bill Watts, because
Sure.
Mid-South was huge. And I think Bill ran the Superdome before any other local promotion ran a venue that size. Of course, he didn't. He never sold it out. But we did. I can't remember the crowds, but we did get big crowds. But
Yep.
Bill is Bill's a highly intelligent guy. I mean, he's incredibly intelligent. And I still get emails from him, and we correspond today. And of course, Bill's also become a Christian. I told him a long time ago. I said, I wish you'd have been a Christian when I was working for you.
He'd have paid you better and wouldn't make you drive so far.
Yeah, he'd have paid me better, and I wouldn't have had the miles. Oh my gosh! If I'd have been paid by the mile, I would be the $1 million man.
Yeah, you ain't kidding.
So, but no, I had a world of respect for Bill, and again, Vince Jr. I mean, Vince Jr. revolutionized wrestling. I mean, when I first started seeing the show before I was part of it or anything, and some of the stuff was, some of that stuff, Cyndi Lauper and all that stuff, and I thought was kind of cartoonish, but what he was doing, he was trying to target a younger audience, kids. I mean, if you look back, if you look at it from here looking back, it was genius. It's kind of like I tell everybody. I said, I put on a crazy outfit with dollar signs on it, but when I got in the ring, I didn't wrestle any different than I ever had.
Right.
And that was my thing, was that I still tried to make my matches as believable as possible, and the match was the story. It wasn't that the other stuff, the vignettes and all that stuff. I tried to make the wrestling the story.
Well, you, in my opinion, 3 great sellers: yourself, Kurt Hennig, and Ric Flair. You guys could sell like no other, I thought, and enjoyable.
Well, that's just it. I mean, and that's the whole thing. I mean, the sell job is the deal. If you don't sell well, then you don't get the big pop. You don't get the big explosion when the good guy comes back.
It's odd to me, but you are really the pinnacle. They call it sports entertainment today. You, to me, are the pinnacle of the entertainment. Obviously, the character was incredibly entertaining, the $1 Million Man, but also you are, and I think this gets lost a little bit amongst us Marks. How you doing out there, Mark? It gets lost a little bit, the amazing technical wrestling you were capable of. You were a great technical wrestler. Do you think that today it's become too much entertainment and not enough sport?
I do.
Interesting.
I do. I mean, maybe I'm just old school, and I know that. I know there's a lot of things that change, and I know there's a lot of things that I haven't, I haven't been around the company for a while. That there are causes for change that I'm aware of. I'm certain of that. But even from fans that I talk to, like the guys like Mike and I who wrestled in the '80s and the early '90s. I hear it all the time. You guys are the last great era of wrestling. And because it was still about the wrestling. It wasn't about, the blow up in the locker room or the story backstage or whatever. It wasn't all the talk. It wasn't the soap opera drama. It was the match. Ultimately, it was the match. I mean, our interviews back then, we didn't have 15 and 20-minute interviews. We had 3-minute, 4-minute interviews for the towns, and we might have 2 or 3 of those, but building up to it.
To be fair, though, you had better storylines back then. Every match had a really good storyline to it that got the fan involved, and obviously the match was the finisher, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what's missing right now. I mean, Mike, you've got children presently working in there right now, and I believe you worked as an agent. Are you still working as an agent for them?
No, I did it for almost 13 and a half years. I just finished up this year.
So how's your feelings with that, like the comparison?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed a lot, and it's hard to go on TV and tell a story wrestling if you have a 5-minute segment or a 6-minute segment and an entrance or 2 entrances. It's like a fast forward. Boom, 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 we're done. And I think time, because a lot of the talents there, I did a lot of live events, and they have 15 minutes or 18 minutes to tell like that. And I think they do so much better in that atmosphere because they're not under the gun, you know, and they have to fit so much in the TV because there are a lot of interviews and backstage and, you know, vignette type situations. Then the matches aren't the concentration. More time should be given to that so you can tell a story wrestling in a match, you know, and it doesn't have to be a 3-minute short story, I think.
So as an agent, when you would say that, what they just said, no, that's not the way it works.
It's not the way it works. You know, you're basically told what they want, and you work with the talent, and then you work within your allotted time, you know, because there's a lot of different aspects that go into the sponsorships. They have to do this, they got to have this, we have to advertise for our pay-per-views, blah, 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 you know, whatever. And, you know, some matches will have 2 or 3 segments, you know, but there's going to be a bigger match, obviously. But to me, that's just hard to, unless you're doing a squash match, it's hard to have any kind of competitive match in a short period of time like that. And basically that's what we used to do years ago, was have a squash match. You were the guy, and I'm gonna get 98% of this match. You just hang on, kid. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's how you got yourself over.
We say that all the time, though, but back in the day when we grew up on wrestling, right, like Morocco and Backlund would have an hour Broadway at the Garden, but, you know, there was a lot of slowdowns, right, arm bars. Do you think today's audience just can't stand for that?
Well, yeah, because they're programmed from television not to see that. You know what I mean? Then it's boring to them.
Well, you know, I say yes and no. I know that I know when I was working, again, for Bill Watts in Mid-South, you know, he noticed that a lot of us were, he says, I'm seeing a lot of high spots. High spot, high spot, high spot. You know, he said, so he took me and Terry Gordy, and he says, you guys are the main event all week. He said, I want you to go 55 minutes and then give them the finish. He says, number one, a lot of the what we call the smart marks are going to say, okay, they're going Broadway, and you're really going to screw them more or less when they go, oh wow, they went that long, and yeah. So, but he said the idea is you can't have a 55-minute match and be bouncing around the ring all the time. You have got to settle down and tell a story. And that's what Bill was getting at. And so I agree with Mike. I said, but you know, and it might be, and for the talent today, through no fault of their own, they haven't been exposed to what Mike and I were, you know, 20, 30 years ago, in terms of the way they have been taught the business. We were taught the business doing it. We're in the ring with a polished professional who's leading us around by the nose, and he's got 15 or 20 minutes, you know, for us to start to understand how this whole thing works.
And 15 or 20 years of experience.
Yeah, exactly. And so the young talent today, they don't have that. And, you know, and that's why it's kind of like when you know, how long were you there, Mike? 13 years? Producing?
Yeah.
You know, I left, and I've been doing my ministry, and I got a call from Arn, and this was back in 05 and 06, 05. Arn said, the company asked me to give you a call. They'd like you to come back to work. I started laughing. I said, do what? and he said, well, you know, it's just like, you know, being part of the creative team. You know, and I actually had a conversation with Stephanie. I said, Stephanie, I said, I'm not Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood's good on both sides of the camera. I said, my gift is you tell me what you want to happen, and I can go out there in the ring and I can make the story happen. That's my gift. You know, but you know, and I did it for about a year and a half, and I just couldn't. And I don't know if it's I couldn't or I wouldn't, you know, just because of the way I was taught and everything, for me to sit down with two wrestlers and map out an entire match just made no sense. I said, I can't do that. I can't do that because I never did it. In other words, the real art form of what we did was improv. It's like, oh yeah, I know the finish. I know exactly how it's going to end. That's a setup for the next show. And if I have a little history with you, in other words, if we'd already had a couple matches, we might go, okay, based on what the people saw last time, maybe we should start this way tonight. But all that stuff in the middle of the start and the finish was organic.
How about with Randy at WrestleMania
that's what
4?
I was gonna ask.
Because Randy always was notorious for having a blueprint. Did he have a blue? I got this great match here right here, Ted.
Right.
That's the first time I ever did that, and I told Randy too, and it was funny because Elizabeth was sitting there. I said, Randy, I said, listen, I said, I understand what you want to do, and I said, that's fine. I said, but give me this leeway as we're doing this. If something comes to me as we're on this track, let me call it, and we're going to come right back to this. Can you do that? You know, he just kind of looked up at Elizabeth and said, Randy, you can do that. And he said, okay, brother, we can do it. And so we went out and tore the house down.
Wow. And you did.
But basically stuck to the game plan. But there was, I just threw in a couple of things that weren't planned.
Nice.
So, Mike, you've just come off the working with them. Can you guys weigh in? Got a lot of pro wrestling experts out there that are always defending the wrestlers, saying, while we're on break, everybody, Pharaoh was talking to Ted about superstar Billy Graham, who seems to be still, we discussed last week, still angry over losing to Bob Backlund in 1978. I don't know why, but anyway. And a lot of these experts still talk about how unfairly wrestlers are being treated, that they're really not independent contractors. And then the most recent occurrence of the WWE saying, hey, look, you cannot use your name as to use third-party social media to generate revenue for yourself, your wrestling name or whatever contract you signed for. Do you guys want to weigh in on both those subjects?
Well, first of all, I don't know anything about what Billy Graham said and don't care. Secondly,
Fair enough.
you know, the wrestling business is what it is, and if you agree to get in it, there's going to be rules, whether I'm saying it's right or wrong. There's going to be rules for any company you work for. So unless things change, you have to deal with that, you know. And I know that some of these guys and girls are making a lot more money than I made in the wrestling business, so I wouldn't be too unhappy about it, you know. I would kind of work around it and deal with it, because like I said, I mean, go try to find another job somewhere. It's not that easy to make the kind of money you can make working for a WWE, you know. And unfortunately, is it perfect? Probably not, but you know, you're going to deal with that kind of thing in anything. There's going to be upsides and downsides, so I'm not going to jump on the mass wagon and try to bury it, you know. Especially I have two of my kids work there, you know, so
Sure.
And I'm glad that they're able to be there at this time. So
Well, and you know, it's kind of like they're not the only game in town anymore. There is some competition now, and I've always said competition is good for business. Competition ultimately is good for the talent because there is some, you know, competition is always good for anybody, because it's kind of like, you know, like when my kids were playing soccer. I knew some parents that wanted to put their kids on a team where their child could be the star. I wanted to put my kid on a team that was good, to where there was some people that were better than them out there, so that would make them better.
Make them better.
That was the whole thing. Competition's always good for business.
Right.
But still, the WWE is still the biggest game in town, and you know, whether you went to work for one company or another company, they are going to have their rules. And you know, it's kind of like the $1 Million Man. The $1 Million Man character is a property of the WWE. Now, I do have an agreement with them. From years ago, I asked for permission to use the character as it pertained to and in pursuit of my ministry. In other words, can I ask these churches to, advertise me as the WWF $1 Million Man? Mm-hmm. And so they wrote off on that. So anything, that's why.
So Vince didn't give you didn't give you an issue with that at all?
Not on that, no. And so that's why I can have a $1 Million Man, website, because I use that for wrestling, but I also use that to advertise where I'm going to be speaking and things like that. So it's not like you can't, and again, I would rather be in a position where I'm working with the company as opposed to butting heads with them, because Mike and I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now if it hadn't been for Vince McMahon and what he did for the wrestling industry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
We go head to head constantly with people who absolutely hate Vince McMahon. So I have to ask you guys while I have you here. And they hate Vince McMahon, a lot of them, because they feel that the old timers, quote unquote, the guys from the past, are not taken care of by Vince currently, that there should be pensions, there should be medical benefits, and all these other things that are obviously sensitive issues. Do you guys feel Vince owes the old timers a living?
Well, in my opinion, that would be nice to have something like that.
Fair enough.
But in the real world, not everything is perfect, like I said,
Absolutely.
And at some point you just got to move on and find happiness within yourself. I actually was out of the wrestling business for 3 years, and I ran a car lot for my father-in-law. My wife and him got in a fight, and then I was no longer at the car lot. They got in an argument, which they regrouped later, but I called up John Laurinaitis and Jerry Briscoe, and I went back to work for Vince, as a producer. And it worked out. I got a good run out of it,
Sure.
a 13-year run. So I can't complain, and complaining does no good anyways, and I just turned 63 years old. I could have worked a couple more years as a producer and retired at 65, but I made it this far and decided, they let me go, and I said, there's not a problem with that. I've had enough.
Been a good run.
Yeah, it's been a good run. And 23 more years on top of it, wrestling over the years. So, I can't complain.
We got about 15 minutes left. Fan out there, Nate, is asking, do you have any Rick Rude stories?
Ooh. Rick Rude.
not really.
Nothing? All right, how about who from the current WWE roster would be the new Money Inc.?
What?
I don't even know how to answer that one.
I don't even know if they are. Do you guys even watch the product nowadays? Because a lot of guys don't.
I'll be honest, I don't.
Yeah. I figured that.
I mean, I'm busy doing other things.
The answer is Monte and the Pharaoh. That's the new Money.
So sorry, Nate.
By the way, I'm broke, so donate now.
Ask both
Thank
of your
you.
questions, and sorry, the gentleman had nothing. So, performance-enhancing drugs, HGH, steroids, right? Prevalent in all of sports. My viewpoint is that it has many values to it. That's just my viewpoint. Did you guys partake in using either one of those in your career?
Look at me. Do I look like I've ever been on steroids?
There you go.
I don't know, man. You're a big guy.
Oh, what a warrior? Bicycle pump veins? No.
Again, I don't know.
No,
Mike, you? Nothing?
No, and when I first was starting, Jack Briscoe, I was training hard with Ricky Steamboat and in the Carolinas, and Jack Briscoe goes, and also the Briscoe brothers were in the Carolinas when I was there the first time. Jack goes, "Don't you ever get on that shit." He goes, "You're a wrestler." He goes, "You don't need that shit. You don't want to look like a musclehead. You want to look like a wrestler, because that's what you are." And I never did.
Wow.
And basically, I was told the same thing.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
Never get on it.
I never thought either of one of you messed around with that stuff. You look like wrestlers to me. So, can you guys speak a little bit about the great Andre the Giant? We always love to ask Andre stories. Any stories for us about Andre?
Man, I loved Andre. I mean, and of course, I guess in the business we call it the rub. Like when like a lot of guys are established stars. Yeah, when you got a new guy coming in that you want to push real hard, or you say, oh man, we can make this guy a star. You put him with somebody that can help elevate their stature.
Sure.
Well, I think that's what Vince did with the $1 Million Man character. That whole deal. I mean, it's like the storyline at that event. Back in '88. The match was Andre and Hulk, but the story was me.
Yeah.
And so post that and post WrestleMania 4, for almost the next year, I had a lot of tag team matches, with Andre against Hulk and Savage, or Hulk and whoever. And so that relationship helped elevate me. But Andre was just a great guy. My funniest Andre story is, and people, and HBO did a pretty good job.
Great documentary.
Of letting the people know just how hard life was for this guy. I mean, here's a guy that can't get comfortable anywhere. I mean, we had ride in conversion vans or limousines because he was too big for anything else. You put him in a first-class seat on an airplane, he can sit there, but he's not comfortable. So we go to Japan, 14 hours, boom. On the bus, the hotel, we're going to meet in the lobby and then go out and eat. And so everybody goes to the room, freshes up. I go out, I hit the button, the door opens, and there's Andre. Hey, boss, let's go eat. So we start down. The elevator stops like on every floor. And these little Japanese people get on. Now, 2 stops ago, you and I would have said, this elevator's full, get the next one. Not in Japan. In Japan, they're used to packing them in because the whole country is the size of the state of California. 3/4 of that landmass is uninhabitable mountains.
Right.
So you got 1/4 of the state of California with a population of half that of the United States. That is stacking them up. But, they just keep getting on. Andre reaches over and gives me the little tap, and I looked up at him and he winks.
Oh, no.
So the next thing you hear, and I to this day, I remember I kept thinking, I know he's the Giant, but how could any human possibly have that much air in their body? It was the loudest, longest fart I've ever heard. I mean, and the poor little Jap guy that's standing directly behind him is getting it right in the face.
Oh my God.
And but when the door opened, it was like the Exodus. They were falling over each other trying to get out the door. I mean, they all got off except me and Andre.
Wait, you didn't run out either? I figured the smell of pea soup.
As the door closes, all you could hear was, oh, 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 oh. He looks at me and he goes, they won't crowd the big man anymore, will they?
That's great.
I love that. My favorite
I've
story.
heard that sound magnified on a steel chair with Andre sitting there naked, not naked, but with no shorts on because he was changing his tights and a towel over.
Wop, 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 wop.
And the whole dressing room. Oh my God. It smelled like a horse farted. I mean, like you said, the amount of air in your body. Oh my God!
Not to be serious, but did it depress Andre, his size and his limitations for a man who?
I don't think it depressed him, but he was in pain as he got older.
Yeah,
Sounds like it was difficult.
he lived in a lot of pain, and Andre hated drugs.
Okay.
He just hated, and so Andre, I mean, I don't think he ever took any. I mean, his painkiller was wine, basically.
Okay.
And
He seemed to like beer.
Yeah, he did both.
Yeah. Okay.
The first time I met Andre, I'm at West Texas State playing football in college, And this is, now Terry Funk and Dory Funk Jr., that's their dad's territory. They've inherited the territory. Dory Sr. is passed away. And so Andre's coming to town, and he's going to be in the territory for a week. Big deal. But they're going to be gone that night, the Thursday night that Amarillo ran. And so they asked me, they said, can you take Andre out for us after the show? And I said, I'd be happy to. So I took him out, and that's when the first time I met him. And I took him out to one of the clubs that, all the college guys went to, and a place where you could eat and drink. And so the girl comes up to the table to take the order. And I said, I have a beer. And she looks at Andre, and he goes, do you have trash can? She says, yeah, we got several. She said, big trash can. She says, oh, yeah. She says, empty trash can, 5 cases of beer on ice at my table.
5 cases.
5 cases.
What does he get for an appetizer? 5 cases.
I looked at her, she looked at me, and I went,
You better do it.
she's a giant.
This guy falls
but you
like
gotta
a
understand,
heavyweight. You better do it.
when if you looked at a beer can in Andre's hand, you almost couldn't see it.
Like a thimble, right?
Yeah, it was like a miniature.
That's crazy.
So his ability to consume is just, it's like there's a lot of spots in that year I was with him that I don't remember well.
And you can also fill up a wash tub. Just think of how, those galvanized wash tubs, how many bottles of wine you can fit in there.
Oh my God.
And then put ice on it.
Yeah.
Now, were you guys ever worried that he didn't like you? Because you hear these stories how if he didn't like you, you were in some. You were.
I
big
met
trouble.
him. I met him the first show I ever went to up in Canada, and just met him. But when a couple years later, I was working in Florida. When he came to Florida, Barry and I would pick him up at the airport, or take him on the towns with us. And he'd come down for a week, and Barry had a big old school Ford Bronco, the big ones. And Andre'd sit in the front. Barry, here's Barry's head. There's Andre, and we'd have the back full with wash tubs of wine and cases of beer and a stack of calzones about that big that we bought.
The calzones for sound effects later on after Andre. Yeah.
So.
And metal chairs.
Who puts Money Inc. together?
Oh.
How does that come about?
Someone in the office.
Someone in the office
created
So
it.
let's put these two guys together, huh?
I think it was Pat, maybe? Pat seemed to be
I
the...
don't know.
We don't know.
Really?
They just got us together one day and said, how do you guys feel about being in a tag team?
All right,
So
fan out there
let's
asks
do it.
Paul Bosch's recent passing. Do you have any fond memories of Paul Bosch?
I didn't know him.
A fond memory would be the fact that Paul was respected as one of the best and fairest promoters in the country. Houston was Paul Bosch. Houston was his town. It was his city. It was his show, and Houston was also like one of those places where you didn't necessarily it might have changed a little bit when Bill Watts bought it from him, because it then became part of Mid-South. But Houston was like one of those cities where people came. Yes, St. Louis was like that.
Yeah.
You didn't, there'd be somebody come down from Gagne's territory, and I would come up from Mid-South, and it was conglomerate of people, but it was all part of, all those territories were still represented by the NWA. So, but again, Paul was respected as being very fair. Good payoff man.
That's good.
And I would agree with that.
Excellent. All right, so we're out of time. I want to get the last Pharaoh's final question. This is where the star of the show will come up with something out of his super brain there
My
and
super
ask these
brain.
two icons to fight. Make it good, Jimmy.
You know what? I think we're going to make it interesting. I'm going to stay consistent with our theme in the past regarding. I want to ask you guys since we got Money Inc. here today, multiple-time tag team champions. I want to ask you guys, give me your Mount Rushmore of tag teams. You got to pick 4 tag teams that you would put on a mountain and say, okay, these are the 4 tag teams that best represent the sport I love so much and the sport that afforded me a wonderful life.
Who are those 4 teams that best represent pro
Steiner
wrestling?
Brothers.
Steiner Brothers, we got one. You agree with that, Ted?
I would.
Okay. Let's see if we can get them to agree on it. This
There
could
you
be
go.
this could be interesting. Okay. So we got the Steiners. Who's next? We got 3 teams to go.
Demolition.
I love that. Thoughts, IRS?
That's cool.
You good with that? Okay. Demolition, Steiners. 2 more. Gets rough, huh? These Mount
Rock
Rushmore
and
ones.
roll.
Rock and Roll Express.
By the way,
I
we'll
can
be
see
in
that-
studio
I
later
can
on this
see
month.
that.
Yeah.
Ted, you good with that?
I could agree with that.
Yep. Okay, one more.
Pat Patterson and
Ray Stevens.
Ray Stevens.
Wow.
That's a great answer.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Good IRS?
Road Warriors, not in that list?
Ro-
Yeah.
Yeah, you got
I
to.
think,
Yeah.
I think so.
Have we gone over 4?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to have to make it 5.
Freebirds? Freebirds?
Wait, the Freebirds are 3 guys. No. Now
All
we're
right.
getting into New Day territory.
Anyway, we want to thank you guys for
New
taking the
Day.
time. What a thrill to have you guys in here. What
you
a
for
wonderful
having us.
interview.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you
us.
for answering all the questions honestly, and
Absolutely.
you know.
And remember, remind them, Mike.
Uh-oh. Did we forget to do something, IRS?
Remind them.
Pay up.
Yeah.
Pay up.
Oh, man.
You tax
I
I
know you-
told you.
Go see the Money Man.
I told you before they came here to have the books all ready.
And everybody's got a price for the $1 million.
You've been watching Long Island's #1 pro wrestler and broadcast, Monte and the Pharaoh, only seen here out of Indie Music TV. You can catch us on the Monte and the Pharaoh Facebook page, YouTube page, hear us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, and catch us on New York Cable on Channel 115 and Channel 20. Next Thursday, we have wrestling personality.
Is that John coming in?
Yep, John Aruzzi in studio. In fact, you guys have John is going to be at your signing today at Wrestling Universe. So John Aruzzi will be on the couch and he'll be discussing his new book that's doing very well. On
What a
the,
great book.
Top
Great book. I'm enjoying
100
it very
books, I
much.
think.
Bad memories.
Any parting words there, Jimmy?
Yeah, is that going to be cash, charge, or check for you guys? We have to pay up. I told you to do the books. Listen, until next time, this has been Monte and the Pharaoh. Later. Hey.